Hey there, how's it going? I hope you're having an awesome day and welcome to a timely update for Pan That Palette, Pan Those Eyeshadows. I'm back on track, y'all. I'm feeling good. I'm back to wearing makeup every day of the week. It's awesome. And I'm making progress, so I'm stoked. So if you didn't get a chance to see my last update, August, I really needed a reboot. Just kind of going through the panning doldrums, not having time to film, trying to figure out what I wanted from my eyeshadow makeup. So I will go on and link that previous video in my just my cards up here, as well as the description box below if you really want a kind of a rehash on all the things that I've been able to hit pan on this year, because my goal is to be much more intentional going across more of my palettes in my collection instead of necessarily focusing on one. And so I want to hit pan in 3 shadows per palette that I'm using, and then it's kind of got me thinking of what I want to do for next year already. So it's too early for that. We still got the last couple of months, last quarter of the year. But in any case, as far as what's going to be updated on today, I'm sorry, my nose is itchy. As far as what we're going to be updating on today, last time I really talked about using the Colourpop Grandeur. Go on and check out that video if you want an update on this, because truthfully, I have not used it since that video. The 2 eyeshadow palettes I've really been focusing on have been the Juvia's Place Nubian 3 Coral. I have been very, very dedicated to using this palette, as well as my Milani Soft and Sultry. Hopefully that reflective packaging is not going to be too distracting. So there we go. Grab your coffee, grab a snack. Let's go on and talk about where we are, because I do have a couple of singles in there. So let's go on and start with Juvia's Place Nubian 3 Coral, because the look that really spoke to me this last couple of, have I been wearing it for like 2 months? Something like that. Has been kind of mixing the cooler tones with the warmer tone shadows. And I really wanted to go through and use the silver shadows out of this palette. So let me show you right here where I was with Juvia's Place back in August. And this is where I currently am today. This palette in general is so warm toned that it was honestly a fun challenge for me to try to figure out how to use these cooler tones. And as you can see, I happily hit 3 pans in this palette. So I'm gonna be able to put this back in my collection and choose some other things. But let's talk about these shadows, because what I would do is I would mix these 2 silver shades using a sponge tip applicator on my lid. And then I would go in with an easy warm brown. I happen to have MAC's soft brown in my collection, so I pulled this out because this is a very flattering shade for me to use as a transition. So whenever I have palettes that don't have transition shades, this is kind of my instant go-to option. But I would go through and put these on my lid, and I was on a bit of a struggle bus with these 2 colors. I've talked about this before, but something about the Juvia's Place formula, it's kind of a learning curve to apply them and really figure out what's going to work best to get the most payoff out of your shades. Because like when I went through with this coral shade down here, excuse me, there is something on my nose. As I went through with this coral shade down here, it took me quite a while to figure out how to get the pigment to show up on my lid. I tried using makeup brushes, I tried using my fingers, I tried foiling it, I tried sponge tip applicators. The sponge tip applicator was fantastic to initially kind of go in and get those first couple of layers off. Then I was able to use the brush. With these 2 silvers down here, I have not been able to use a brush at all. There is literally no pigmentation on my eyes. It ends up being a chalky mess. And this color in particular, the lighter silver, I don't want to say it's hard pan, but it's definitely challenging to get color off of this without it being chunky, chalky, and kind of a powdery explosion all over the eyes. So what I chose to do is I would take a sponge tip applicator, I would do a little bit of a dip in this, I would go back into this deeper silver, and then go back and top it with this, and then apply it to my eyes that way. It was really beautiful. I liked the smoky effect. I definitely noticed that it is quite flattering now that I have these grays coming in, because that's where I am right now with my makeup, is I'm in a really awkward phase of I don't like completely warm looks on my eyes anymore because it looks a little bit too stark against my hair. But at the same time, I'm not ready to embrace a complete cool toned look because it's still like, even if I have a really good bronzer, my skin tone is just not quite complementary enough to make a completely cool tone work. So I'm still trying to figure out where I want to go with that, because the grays that are coming in are very different all over my head. Like the pieces that I have on top that are kind of hidden under this clip right now are very shimmery and silvery and sparkly, and it makes me excited to go gray because they're pretty. But then we've got this action over here that I'm not really sure what to do with it. It's not gray, it's not white, it's just kind of there. And the pieces that are coming in over here are just kind of there. So it's making me have to rethink my makeup in some levels. So what I would do in my crease is I would go through with this matte brown. It's a matte reddish tone brown. It's actually quite flattering on the eyes, but I found that it was a perfect way to really anchor the silvers down and give me that cool tone brightening effect next to my brown eyes. It made my brown eyes stand out incredibly well, but at the same time, it still kind of complemented what's going on with my hair to make it much more flattering and a little bit more pleasing for me to look at. You know, it wasn't quite so obvious of me trying to pull off a warm eye and then have like the gray. It's just, the struggle is real, seriously. So I would go through and have that in my crease, and then I would deepen it up with a smoky brown. In fact, let me show you. It's kind of a crumbly mess, but the matte brown that I've been working on quite diligently after I made some progress with my Milani palette, I went back to this Made for Mocha shade from Maybelline. As you can see, I'm making a lot of progress. This is one of my absolute favorite shadows of all time. I love using this as a liner. Deepening out my outer corner. I will use it in my brow sometimes, so I'm just steadily working on it. Now it's at the point that it's crumbled, so it's a big old mess. But we're working with it. So I would deepen up my outer corner with that, and then I would also go through with this beautiful matte orange down here. It's intense. It's definitely pumpkin level orange. I actually have it running through my crease again today in a more subtle way, but I liked warming up my crease area against that silver and the brown. It just complemented the look quite well. I was still able to go through with my MAC Peaches blush, which is the blush I'm wearing today. Hopefully it's not too light. The lighting looks a little weird on camera, so hopefully it's not too bright. But it actually paired quite nicely. And again, it gave me the opportunity to really get to know this palette. I feel more confident having this palette around in my collection that I will continue to reach for it in the future, just because now I've definitely had some experience with these silvers. This matte gray in the middle though, I don't know about you. Comment below if you have this palette and you've tried out that color, but I can't seem to get any payoff with this matte shadow. And typically I don't have any issues getting the Juvia's Place matte formulas to work. It's been very easy for me, but this shadow doesn't have a lot of payoff. And also this shadow down here, it's kind of a dove gray. There's a little bit of brown taupe to it, but it's a very light, warm gray, kind of an oyster color without any shimmer. That's another shade that I've had a lot of issues trying to get it to have any kind of payoff on my eyes. So that's gonna be something I have to figure out, or if it just flat out doesn't work for me, at least I feel confident using the rest of the palette. So another 3 shades done. That is super exciting, which takes us into Milani Soft and Sultry. This is where I was last time I updated you on this palette. I've been very diligent with it as well. And here's what we're working with now. I've actually hit pan on more than 3 shades. I actually have 4 at this point. I first initially hit pan in this brown over here. It's not a very intense warm brown. It did the job. I had to layer it up, but I would use this as a transition shade. But let me tell you, I'm very thankful to be back in something a little bit deeper, because this is not my favorite at all. I mean, it got me to hit pan, but it is definitely not my favorite. The next shade that I hit pan in is this beautiful shimmery kind of a creamy white over here, called In the Buff. It is a lovely shade. I like the glowy effect it gives my eyes. It is definitely reminiscent of a favorite highlighting shade that I have from the MAC In the Flesh palette. And also if you have something in your collection that you're wanting to do a similar effect, if you have the L'Oreal Color Riche eyeshadow, Paris Beach is quite similar to that shade too. So after I hit pan in it, I pulled this out again, and I've been working on this as well just to kind of hopefully get some more pans and some other things in my collection. But I really, really love this shade. And these two shades down here, there is a matte brown in the center, and then this over here is a matte black. Actually, no, this is the matte brown. I used this to deepen up my outer corner. Actually, do I? Yeah, 1, 2. All right, I can count. But in this matte brown down here, I was using where I now place the Maybelline Made for Mocha shadow. I would use this to deepen out my outer corner. I would use it as liner. I would use it in my brows. It is a lovely shade. It is not very pigmented, but I think part of that is due to the fact that this palette is several years old. It's definitely not in its peak condition, so that's on me. That's not on the formula or Milani in general, because I don't believe you can find these palettes anymore, but it's definitely worth pulling this out of your collection if you have it and use it and enjoy it. So once I hit pan in that, I went back to Made for Mocha, and I've been working on these two shadows. This is more of a deepened espresso with hints of gray in it. It is a very, very dark shadow. It's actually deeper than the matte black over here. So what I would do is I would mix the two shadows, and I would use that to set a felt eyeliner on my lash line, because the felt liner tends to bleed. It doesn't matter what formula or brand I buy. Because of my hooded lids, it's just par for the course. That type of formula is going to run, but I like the ease and I like the look of having the liquid liner. But I definitely, for my personal preference, I do need to set it to make sure that I don't have a mess going on all up into my eyeshadow. So these two together worked actually quite well. It took me, you know, mixing the two, sometimes a layer or two, just because, like I said, this palette doesn't have as much pigmentation as it once did, because it is on the older side. But again, I'm thrilled that I have been able to make some serious progress in that palette. Then that takes us into what's going to be happening. Now, normally I would want to roll to randomly select some palettes, but I've really been thinking and feeling gravitating towards palettes for the last couple of weeks, especially with some of the luxury palettes that I purchased during, you know, pandemic and all that. And so the two palettes that really came to my mind that I'm going to be rotating in, I want to hit 3 shadows in each of these. The first one is going to be my Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. I've owned this palette for 2 years now. I haven't really had a ton of usage on it, and it's been one of those situations that it's a perfect fall palette. I really want to get the use out of it because it is so warm toned with a lot of these shades. So I'm going to be working on this. In fact, today I went through with this warm brown over here that has a little bit of gold to it. And then I used the greens. I went through with this in my crease area. I thought it was a little bit too swampy. Can you even tell? I feel like I did an all green look today, and I don't know if it's just my glasses or what, but it kind of looked super swampy to me in person, but it's not looking near as dark in person now, like when I look in the mirror. Maybe it's coming across a little bit better on camera, but I wanted to try out some of the greens, since a lot of people are talking about the greens, like after she released the retro palette, that they wanted a, you know, a green like mini palette. And so it just kind of was on the brain. I want to pull this out. And so yes, I'm not rolling for it, but this is something that's been on my mind that I want to pull out and use. I don't want this palette to go bad without having the opportunity, because I really do love the Natasha Denona formula, and it is a shame that this has been sitting in my collection for as long as it has. So we're gonna pull it out, we're gonna use it. And the other palette that I purchased during, well, okay, so that was pre-pandemic. One of the palettes that I purchased during the pandemic has been the Pat McGrath, what is this called? The Mothership Mega Celestial Divinity palette. This was a massive impulse purchase for me because I heard about Pat McGrath for so long. I'd never tried any of her formula before, and I was able to get this on sale. And so I jumped on it, and you know, I thought, now's the time. Like, you know, considering it was still expensive, even being on sale, it's another palette that's kind of been on my mind that I need to pull out. So let me show you what the inside looks like. This is what we're working with. And today I went through and I played around with the green in the middle. I had that on my lid, and I actually have it topped with a shade from my Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette. Yes, I'm still working on that too. But I thought this might be a fun way to incorporate some berries for fall, some greens. I really want to get to know her shimmery formula, since I've heard a lot about it. And this palette kind of gets some mixed thoughts. Like, people either love it or they hate it. Why do I tend to like purchase palettes that tend to have polarizing views? I don't know. We got to work on that. But in any case, hopefully it's not too bright. But in any case, I'm going to be working on this palette as well. So considering I've got so many options between these two palettes in terms of color, I'm actually gonna leave it just to these two because we're already in September, and so I'm gonna have my work cut out for me with just these two palettes. So hopefully I got six shadows that I need to hit pan in before we finish out the year to kind of hit my goals for those palettes. So I'm just gonna roll with those and then use what's left of Made for Mocha if I need to have, you know, something deeper to work with everything. And I also figure I can like pull out, you know, other shades from my collection to kind of sub in. But either way, like I've got my work cut out for me between this Natasha Denona and Pat McGrath. The other thing that I've got going on is Subculture. I'm still quietly panning it because what I ended up doing today was I used the Destiny, that beautiful olive green shade, in my crease. I have it deepened out with the Made for Mocha shade. So I think that I could finish that if I wore this green look a couple of times within the next couple of weeks. And then I also went through with some of Electric down here, just on my finger to top off what's going on my lid, give it a little bit of shimmer, a little bit of shine. And again, that's another shade that I could finish within the next couple of weeks. And I thought that the rest of what's going on here, even though there are similar colors in the Metropolis palette, I thought that this would be a nice complementary way to continue making some use out of this palette to hopefully finish it off and get it out of my collection. So that's where we are. I've got a lot of work ahead of me, and a lot of ideas that I need to kind of get sorted out in my head, because I had different visions of what was going to go on with this green makeup today. I like it, but at the same time, it doesn't inspire me. So I need to kind of play around with things and see what I want to do. But like I said, I'm thrilled with being able to hit pan and 3 more shadows. I think that that makes, well, not even 3. It's like 7 shadows between those two palettes. But I think I'm at a point of hitting pan in like 20 something shadows for the year. So I definitely want to up that goal, because I know in the past when I've panned palettes, I've been able to kind of have an average of about finishing like 20 to 22 shadows per year. So I need to get on and move on, even though I do take into account and accept the fact that I have not worn makeup as often this year as I typically do, even in the last 2 years, because let's be honest, we've been home since 2020. So yeah, we're gonna get back on track. We're gonna get back in the groove of things. I hope that you are having fun with your makeup again. I know it's been a wild ride for the past little bit, but I hope that you're able to establish a comfortable normal for you, and that you're enjoying having that time to yourself to put on your makeup in the morning and enjoy playing with makeup, because I know I'm certainly rediscovering that joy, and it's a lot of fun and nice to have those feelings back. So I wish you all the best, and I look forward to catching up with you real soon. So until then, take care. Adios.